Hi, my name is Stuart. I own RogueArtTuning, and this is my 92 Nissan Skyline GTS-4 sedan. What's really cool about this car is it looks like a regular Skyline sedan. Most people don't recognize a sedan over the coupe anyways. Everyone knows the GTR, which is a coupe and has different taillights and has Skyline imprinted across the back. So a lot of people don't recognize this car at first, which I kind of like. What's really interesting about this car is the only real things that you can notice is it has some GTR brakes on it. But what's really cool is it actually has a full drivetrain from an R33 GTR. Not just the engine, but it's the trans, it's the diffs, it has working HICUS. They even swapped, like I said, the brakes and the subframes as well with it. So all the diffs and everything clear a lot better. The only modifications that I have found that had to be done to swap this drivetrain in here was they do have the transmission significantly larger, so they do have to bash in the trans tunnel a little bit so it has room to clear. But other than that, it's a full, just straight swapped R33 GTR drivetrain in it. This car, when I bought it imported. It had been imported for probably about a month or so at the time. What's really cool is I bought it from Kuruma Imports. He's in Miami, really good dude. He flies over to Japan and hand picks all the cars out himself and then ships them over here. He's not looking at pictures, you know, in an auction place and then purchasing it and hoping it's not a piece of junk. This car is in really good shape. It is a 27-year-old car. It still has plastics and rubbers and things that are dry rotting and cracking and all that normal stuff. And it needs work, obviously, but it's a pretty clean car for a 27-year-old car. There's no rust on it. That's the big thing with these is they can get a lot of rust around the batteries or in the back around the trunk. We found one little spot of surface rust that's been since taken care of, and other than that, it's a pretty clean car. It has been repainted. It was repainted in Japan. Apparently finding a good paint job in Japan is very difficult, just like finding a good fabricator. This car was imported with these gram lights. These gram lights we took, actually my buddy Dewey helped me just figure out what they were because it's a wheel that we've never seen and it's not a wheel that's being made right now. What it is a Gram Light 57 Pro two-piece, which has not been made for like almost 20 years, I believe. I could be wrong on that, but they haven't made them for a while. What's interesting about these wheels is they are two-piece wheels, but if you notice, there's no bead lock anywhere around it. These are two-piece welded wheels, which I didn't know was a thing until I bought the car, but apparently two-piece welded wheels was a thing in Japan, and I think it's pretty cool. The other thing you notice up front is this has what's called, I've heard people call it a few different names. The most common is a stepped core intercooler, which, again, this is something I had never seen until I saw this car. This is an Apexi intercooler core. Apparently it's super rare, and apparently they're worth a lot of money, even in not very good shape. Which this one has, you could tell this was 15, 20 years old probably. It's got a lot of corrosion and a bunch of little dents from bugs and rocks and things, but it's still pretty effective. I've noticed even beating on it in summer, my IATs are pretty good for what this car is and for being a twin turbo 6-cylinder in Florida. I haven't cleaned up the outside or the interior too much yet. It's pretty much all been underneath stuff. I've replaced all of the coolant hoses with silicone hoses, which is more complicated than it sounds. It's not just radiator hoses. You've got these little hoses that run around the front of the timing cover, and then you've got a bunch of hoses underneath the intake manifold for the oil cooler and the heater and all that kind of stuff. The couple of them are a huge pain. I did have to take the intake manifold and the ITBs off to get to a few of them in the rear, but I had to do it. The couple in the rear busted and started draining down the transmission, and Honestly, other than that, the car's been really, really reliable for a 27-year-old Japanese car. But those coolant hoses apparently is something that needs to be replaced quite often. When I purchased the car, it had the factory radiator, had the factory thermostat, it had the factory turbo inlets, but it had some mines intake filters, intakes they call them, but it's really just a piece with a filter on it. It still had the factory rubber tubing on it. Those have airflow meters in them, or mass airflows, whatever you want to call them, old style mass airflows. This car, one of the very, very, very first things I did on it when I purchased it is put an ECU Masters EMU Classic in with the plug and play adapter, and that's also running on speed density, of course, so we don't need the airflow meters. They've been sitting unplugged for a couple months, so I just recently had Odyssey Fab here in town in Tampa custom fab me some speed density intakes. One thing I really, really, really like that he did is he used epoxy filter housings, kind of keep it, you know, JDM, kind of keep it 90 spec, you know, which I kind of like. But we did put the coil in it. I did repaint the manifold. It had been repainted already by the previous owner in Japan, but it was a weird color black and it was starting to fade and it just didn't look very good. So I repainted the manifold, I repainted the strut bar. One of the big things I did with this car, actually hands down the biggest thing I did, was replace the entire fuel system. Even though this car is on stock turbos, I really, really, really wanted to run ethanol even on stock turbos. It burns so much cleaner, it burns so much cooler. It's so much less likely to have knock or any kind of incomplete combustion. So I really, really, really wanted to run it. I've always liked ethanol. So this car wasn't even made to handle the E10 that's in regular 93 nowadays, so even that is technically considered too corrosive for the stock fuel system. So we ended up doing a radium fuel rail, radium fuel pressure regulator and gauge. We did the dual pump regulator. It's much bigger regulator. You can run multiple fuel pumps in it, and it is returned. We got some fuel injector clinic 1200cc injectors. We've also got a radium inline fuel filter over here, and we also have a Continental flex fuel sensor wired in, so you can, if you can't find ethanol, just pump some 93 in it and you'll still be fine. It's got a full 93 tune and a fully 85 tune that the EMU Classic pretty much blends the two maps based on what that sensor reads. Good old Subaru Grim Speed boost control solenoid, because that's what I tune the most of. But that's about it under the hood. The purple bay came like that. Everybody loves the purple bay. So a lot of people ask me what it's like driving a right-hand drive car. Actually, I get a lot of questions about driving, how this car is different, but that's one of them is what's it like driving a right-hand drive car? Honestly, it's pretty much the same. The weirdest thing is going back and forth between left-hand drive cars and right-hand drive cars for the first couple weeks. I tune enough cars, especially left-hand drive cars, that I've gotten used to it and I can go back and forth without getting weirded out. Honestly, the weirdest thing is not that you're sitting on the right side, it's not that you're shifting with your left hand. No joke, the weirdest thing for me about driving a right-hand drive car, not now, but at first, was that the turn signal is on this side. So when I was getting back in my wife's Q50 and driving that, I was always accidentally throwing the windshield wipers on and things of that nature. So that's honestly, the weirdest thing for me was that the turn signal was on this side. So turn signal's on the other side. A lot of people that think they love Skylines might love them, but they might not like to drive it as much as they think. A lot of the things that I really like about this car, I could see a lot of people hating about it. A lot of people will describe it as one of the most raw feeling cars you'll ever drive, and honestly, that's probably the best way to describe it. You can feel it, and again, this car has got some epoxy coilovers as well, but you can feel everything in this car. You feel every bump in the road, you feel every move you make in the steering, you feel everything in this car, you really do. And I like that. The steering is very heavy. The shift, the gearbox is very tight going into every gear. It's almost weird how tight it is for a car being as old as it is. but everything is really heavy and really tight. And if you're really into performance cars and you're really into that raw, you're a part of it kind of feel, this is a great car. But I can see where a lot of people might want something more comfortable, because it's not the most comfortable car by any means. It's one of the least comfortable cars I've ever driven. On 93, I would guess it's making somewhere between 330 and 350 wheel horsepower at about 14 to 15 pounds of boost. These are on the stock turbos, and the stock turbos really aren't safe above 14, 15 pounds because they have ceramic turbine wheels, and if you are running 19, 20 pounds of boost constantly, the turbines will literally just break off the spindle and blow out the back of your exhaust. So this car is only on a 14, maybe 15 PSI peak. That's on 93 and E85. So we said about probably 330 to 350 on 93. I thought it was making 360-ish, 370 on E85. Everyone seems to be telling me it feels faster than that. So somewhere between 360 and 380 wheel horsepower, probably with some E85 in it. And this car does have the full drivetrain swap, so it is all-wheel drive, and it does have working HICUS. You can control the front, how much power goes to the front diff with the EMU. I haven't messed with that very much, but you can shut off the front diff with that, as well as there's some switches from Full Race and things like that that can control the diff and how much torque goes to it, and turn it off completely and make it rear-wheel drive. You can do all that. It does have a full 3-inch exhaust and some downpipes, so it's not quiet in here, but it's not overbearing. We can have a conversation. I'm really hoping you can hear everything I'm saying right now. But it is a loud car. Like I said, it's not just raw in the way it feels, it's raw in pretty much every sense. You can hear a lot. You can hear the transmission underneath you work, and you know, it's cool though. If you're into that, it's perfect. So let's just go for a little drive and see how it is. Another thing people ask me all the time is, how did you get it? What did you have to do differently for it? I didn't have to do anything differently for it. I called a guy after seeing online at Kuruma. I told him if the car looked as clean as it was in photos, I would be taking it home. I had a money order ready, which obviously I was not going to give him if the car was not up to the standards that I wanted it to be. I just got a money order ready. I didn't finance it normally. There is a division of a large bank that does finance specialty things, classic cars, collectible guns, just you're not in normal financing stuff. And that's all we did. We just went through that division, and nothing weird about it. We registered it normally. Insurance was normal. Everything I did like buying every other car I've ever owned. Literally the most difficult part about it was convincing my insurance company that the VIN was only 11 digits and that it wasn't 16 digits. That was honestly the most difficult part about buying this car. It was a breeze. It was a piece of cake. That's my 92 Skyline GTS-4. Sorry for closing this video out in the garage, but it just started a torrential downpour like it does in Florida. If you want to follow along with the car some more, check out RogueArtTuning on Instagram or Facebook, or RogueArtStew, that's my personal one. Also check out Team Speed Quest, the Instagram, the Facebook, and of course subscribe to the YouTube channel. And yeah, bye.